Do my opponents want to start an email chain?
Sure, sorry, my computer was being a bit slow.
And judges, do you guys want to be part of it? If you do, can you send your emails?
I'm good.
And do you want us to start it or you start it?
Oh, we can start it. Can you send your email?
Yeah, sounds good.
I sent out the chain just to make sure.
Yeah, I received it. Just waiting on my partner to confirm, and we'll wait until the tournament directors give the green light and we can start.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Perfect. Sounds good. They just said that we can get started. Okay. So is everybody ready? We can get started. Okay, sounds good. Just quick introduction for the judges that might not have caught my chat message. My name is Neil Pedibola. I'm first speaker for Team USA MD, and we are con first for today's round. Okay. Time will begin in 3, 2, 1. We negate the resolution on balance in the United States. The benefits of presidential executive orders outweigh the harms. Contention 1 is executive orders undermine democratic institutions and encourage authoritarianism. Executive orders fundamentally weaken the democratic principles of checks and balances by allowing the president to act unilaterally. This bypasses the legislative process, which is designed to foster debate, compromise, and accountability. When a president sidesteps Congress to enact major policy decisions, it shifts the balance of power dangerously towards the executive, fueling what many scholars have called the rise of an imperial presidency. The Cato Institute emphasizes that the unchecked expansion of presidential power via executive orders has grown steadily over decades, noting the president's power is now so gargantuan that it alone is sufficient reason to focus on the president's means of exercising power. Congress has not only failed to resist this shift, but has at times abdicated its responsibility, standing by as the executive branch took on more quasi-legal authority. This expansion undermines the very idea of democratic legitimacy. Meinheim and Watts argues that modern presidents exert enormous control over administrative agencies via executive orders, despite the lack of a well-defined legal framework to govern these actions. This lack of transparency and oversight allows for sweeping policymaking without the procedural safeguards that legislation demands. This danger is not just theoretical. History offers chilling reminders. Executive Order 9066, signed by Franklin D. Roosevelt, authorized the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II, a decision widely condemned today as a grave violation of civil liberties. Executive orders unchecked have the potential to override the rights of vulnerable populations in the name of expediency. Unchecked executive action corrodes the separation of powers and can foster authoritarian governance. It weakens Congress, sidelines the judiciary, and normalizes the idea that a single person can dictate national policy without consensus. Contention 2 is executive orders are prone to abuse, legal uncertainty, and instability. Executive orders are particularly vulnerable to misuse because they lack the institutional guardrails and scrutiny the legislative process require. Presidents can implement far-reaching policies with minimal transparency and limited opportunity for public or congressional input. This has led to numerous cases of executive overreach, legal challenges, and ultimately political policy instability. Legal scholar Erica Newland reviewed nearly 300 cases involving executive orders and concluded the legal system has failed to develop a coherent framework for evaluating them, describing the system as born of disorder. This confusion has allowed presidents to push the legal limits of legality with minimal resistance until challenged in courts, and most of the time courts become backlogged due to executive orders. A prime example is President Trump's executive executive orders on immigration. His travel bans targeted Muslim majority countries, provoked immediate and widespread litigation. Courts struck down or enjoined several of these orders, citing constitutional violations such as lack of due process and religious discrimination. President Biden's attempt to cancel $400 billion in student debt was also blocked by the Supreme Court for exceeding executive authority. These legal battles are not isolated. During Trump's presidency, a flood of lawsuits directly challenged presidential orders, including those on sanctuary cities, birthright citizenships, and regulatory rollback. Courts frequently intervened to halt implementation, reflecting the unconstitutional nature of overreach of the orders. Moreover, executive orders are extremely unstable. Unlike legislation, which requires congressional repeal or amendment, executive orders can be undone with a simple signature. This leads to massive policy swings between administrations. For example, President Trump's implemented DACA via executive order. President Trump attempted to end it, and President Biden reinstated protections. This back and forth injects uncertainty into the legal and policy landscape, affecting millions of people's lives and undermining long-term planning. Inconsistent legal enforcement due to vague or overly broad language also gives unelected federal agencies the discretion to interpret these orders in different ways, compounding the potential for abuse and error. Contestant 3 is executive orders undermine accountability and democratic transparency. Executive orders remove the critical layer of democratic accountability inherent in the legislative process. Unlike bills passed through Congress, executive orders are often crafted behind closed doors by a narrow circle of advisors and agency staff with limited opportunity for public input or bipartisan oversight. This lack of transparency means controversial or harmful policies can be implemented without meaningful resistance until they're already enacted. As the internal executive branch process for drafting and vetting executive orders is often less transparent and involves less public input compared to legislative or formal rulemaking processes. The secrecy has been weaponized. For instance, the Trump administration uses executive orders to roll back DEI initiatives and reduce civil rights protections and target sanctuary cities, all without congressional approval. Many of these actions were carried out swiftly and all in secret, sparking legal challenges from civil rights groups and states across the country. And but the Obama, Trump, and Biden administration have each at times used executive order to bypass congressional gridlock. However, in the use of executive power to address legislative inaction undermines the foundational principles of representative democracy. For all of these reasons, we urge a neg ballot. Thank you.
Before we move on, can I just call for a couple pieces of evidence?
Sure.
Number one, can I have the EO 9066?
Yeah, like, do you? Yeah, I can send that card. Do you want
Number
anything
two,
else?
Yeah.
Number two, I'd like the court clog card. And
Okay,
also
I can
like
send that.
I'd also like the EO's bypass gridlock in C3.
Okay, I can send you what. Okay, so it's the 9066 bypass court gridlock, and you wanted, what was the third one again? Court clog.
Yeah.
Wait, can you also send the authoritarian creation from EOS?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, okay, I can send those three. Sounds good.
Okay,
All
then.
right, thank you so much.
Sorry, just give me 1 second. Sorry, my computer's being really slow. I'm sending the first card right now. Okay, I sent 9066, sending the other three right now.
Okay. Let me just See if I got it. Okay, I got it. So, wait, can you send the other three or?
Wait, I can send one of them. I'm sending
Yes,
the
sorry, yeah,
gridlock one. I'm
I
sending the
am
grid.
sending them. So you want to partner, which one are you sending again?
I sent the gridlock one.
Gridlock, all right, sounds good. So I just need to send the court backlog.
Well, I didn't get the gridlock. I didn't get anything from. Oh wait, yeah, I got it. I got it.
Yeah, okay, I'm sending the backlog one right now, and then that should be.
Okay.
Okay, I sent most of the links. Yeah, I sent them. They should be coming through now. Okay, if you guys want to go ahead, that would be great.
Yeah, okay. I'll go and I'll just see if they send after. Is anyone not ready? Okay, perfect. I'll start the time now. We affirm contention one is breaking the gridlock. Jacob, a postdoctoral scholar at the Stanford Political University or at the Stanford Political Science Department, quantifies that Congress is the most polarized in recent decades. Bipartisan legislation is a thing of the past. Congress is unable to pass legislation at all, with only 30 laws in its first year, the lowest in history, risking the future of our democracy. However, Francis of Woodward in 25 reports that executive orders enable presidents to advance their policy priorities, especially in a politically divided government. By leveraging their authority, presidents can enact key policy measures that may otherwise face gridlock. We have seen this with past presidents. Professor Pearlstein of UPenn writes in 2025 that Congress's failure to resolve issues forces presidents to fill that vacuum with expectations among voters that Congress cannot do its job. Look to history where orders have fought crisis. Deist in 25 writes that Roosevelt's signing of EO 6101 during the Great Depression laid down the framework for civilian corps, designed to provide jobs for young men while improving American natural resources. COVID was also a demonstration. Flood remarks that Biden signed two executive orders to address the economic toll of the pandemic, addressing food insecurity with financial assistance and worker protections. Tice of the Star Tribune continues that otherwise, these crises took place in gridlock Congresses where nothing would have been done and hundreds of thousands could have gone into life-threatening poverty or died of sickness. Gro Brundtland, the Prime Minister of Norway, argues that COVID and past crises proved the need for fast action in the face of global risks, requiring a swift global response. Partisan and gridlock only stand in the way of all tackling existential threats, including climate change and nuclear armament. Contention two is innovation. As the Scholar Strategy Network finds, every modern American president provided innovation and growth-spurring inventions. This isn't just in the past. George Mason University finds just this year that EO 14225 established a U.S. investment accelerator to assist investors in navigating regulatory processes and improve efficiency, which otherwise would have stopped thousands of inventors with excessive hurdles. Executive orders are also uniquely key to revitalizing trade. William of Financial Times 2 weeks ago reports that an executive order was signed to implement a trade deal with the UK for manufacturers, granting the US greater market access. It's promoting innovative investment and working now. SVB just 3 weeks ago continues that venture capital investment in technology powered by innovation is up 46% just recently, and the innovation economy is showing significant growth. Innovation is key to our economy as a whole and preventing poverty as a whole. McKinney and Rajagopalan write that innovation increases productivity and is attributed to half of all GDP growth. With every 1% increase in GDP, 3 million humans are lifted out of poverty. Bristow continues that this is key to crisis management, with innovation leaders significantly more likely to resist crises like COVID or the 2008 economic recession. In the end, innovation will save billions. The World Economic Forum concludes that innovations have helped us live longer and healthier. Synthetic fertilizers, blood transfusions, and vaccines are all credited with saving 1 billion lives. Thus, Judge, to save lives, to continue to actually act fast and swift during dire situations, we strongly urge an affirmative ballot. Thank you.
Okay, are you ready for cross?
Yeah.
Okay, just before we start, can I take the first question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, time will start in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so you talk about how in your C1 that EOs are unique to breaking gridlock and they're good for acting fast, and you give two examples, correct? You give COVID-19, you give the Great Depression, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, how can you say that Congress failed to act in both of these when clearly during COVID-19 it passed multiple different acts, including the CARES Act, the Families First Coronavirus Act, that all happened within days,
Days, as in which day?
like 3 days after COVID was declared a national emergency. It's
Yeah.
3 days.
Yeah, so what we would tell you is that that was March 13th, 2020, right? And so what happened when these orders were passed were clearly it didn't work. Like the US was one of the last countries to effectively prevent COVID. So in 6 months, when nothing worked, Biden comes into office in November. And then what happens? He issues this executive order, but then this only hurries up the process of a vaccine creation, which actually takes us, like, which actually is only a step closer. So what I would say is that Congress was not helpful at all because thousands, hundreds of thousands of people were dying in this 6 month period.
Okay, so first off, the fact of the matter is that Biden's EOs really only like had federal mask mandates. That was pretty much about it. And those federal mask mandates, 39 states already had federal mask mandates out, and people were already using masks. And the fact of the matter is, Congress was the one who provided billions and trillions of dollars to actual funding to reverse the lives saved. And this was within days. But you can take a question.
Okay, wait, let me just respond to that really quickly, then I'll
Yeah.
take the question. So what we would tell you, it's, yeah, I know it's within days, but obviously it didn't work. Like, otherwise COVID would have been solved a lot quicker, but as we see, it was not. Like, even when Biden was elected in November 2020, it was still a huge problem. But now I'm gonna ask you a question.
Yeah.
So let's go on to your case. You talk about like EOs like being unstable and they could just be reversed in the next presidency or like administration. What percent of EOs are actually reversed in the next administration?
Okay, so I don't know this off the top of my mind, but it's not the fact of how many have been reversed, it's how many can be and the potential for abuse. We tell you multiple have been reversed in the past. It's not just a theoretical argument. We give you the DACA example, which is just one of very few, first off. And second off, we give you.
Wait, so, okay, wait. So can you like, so do you have any statistic or even number that says how many are being reversed, or is it just one example?
Again, I don't have that off the top of my head. I can provide it later on.
So you don't have statistics. Okay, then your entire argument is like, okay, you could have a question, I guess.
Okay, I can take a question. So in your C2 for innovation, do you not think you give one example of an EO and you say that the EO is unique for this? Can you explain, or do you have a card that says EO is the only way for increased innovation?
Well, I mean, I feel like that would be on the burden of the neg to prove. What we tell you is that when this executive order went through, innovation in venture capital in AI went up a ton, and what
So
46.
no, but it's not our job to prove if you make the
Yeah.
claim. If you making the claim saying that the
I mean,
EO is
I'm not gonna disprove my own argument. Like what I'm gonna say.
I just want a card saying that the EO is unique to your growth that you state in your C2, and that's time for cross.
Yeah.
So if you can send that card, that would be great. And also, can I
Wait, hold on. Can you say the card we need again?
you stated in your C2 that the EO is unique for increased innovation and especially trade. So I would just like a card for that if you could. And then also, could I get the card that
Wait,
says
sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but can you be a bit more specific? Like, which
Yeah.
are the arguments?
so you said in your own, like you said EO, you talked about trade. which revitalized trade, correct? And you talked about how there's increased innovation, and then you talked about how the EO is unique. I just need like any card that says the EO is a unique and only way, one of the only ways to solve this problem.
I mean, that wasn't a card we brought up in our
That's
team.
not what
We
we're
can
saying.
tell you
We're
was
that
saying it
EO's
exists.
brought up trade,
correct,
but
but you can't. You made the claim saying that it was unique to this.
no, we just said it spurred it and was like, I feel like it would be your job to provide that it wasn't unique, but I'll send the card that said it spurred it.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah. And could I also call for a card? Do you have a card that says like Congress did not act during COVID or it didn't work?
No, I mean, I was rebutting your argument.
I know, but you claim that Congress's actions didn't work. Do you have a card for
Yeah, I
that?
was just like using common sense. If it didn't work in 6 months, then nothing was
Okay,
changing.
that's fine. You can just send that one card. That would be great.
Okay, I just sent it. Also, for your like the last card you sent, do you mind sending a cut card for that link just so we don't have to like waste time scrolling through the entire thing?
Which card was that?
It's the links for Texas Tribune and Ibanez.
I know, but was that like court backlogs? Was that
Oh yeah, it was core backlog.
okay, yeah, I can do that. Just give me 1 second.
Okay, because it's like 3 links.
Yeah.
And before I start my prep time, we also need that innovation card. If you guys could just
Oh
send
yeah,
that.
we just sent it. So
Innovation?
yeah,
I got trade.
we sent the trade card. I don't think did you guys call for any other card?
Yeah, we called for innovation and executive orders is role in that.
Can you be like okay, yeah. Wait, can you be like more specific? Because our entire
Yeah, I'll specify. So if I'm not wrong, one of your contentions was that EOs have a big part in like innovation.
yeah.
So we just need the cards that support that it's EOs who support innovation. Like just any card that supports that claim.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, Dave, I think that's the SSN and SSN, GMU, and Levic.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Wait, so just like our link chain pretty much?
Yeah, I mean like just a few cards that or
Okay.
one card that just links the EO to innovation.
Okay, so wait, Leo, I'll send SSN, Levic, and William. I think it is. Because those are the names.
Send it. Wait, David, send the GMU card.
Oh, I think okay, yeah, yeah. Sorry. Okay, I sent like the whole link chain, I guess. It's carded though, so just let me know when you got it.
Okay. Okay, I got it.
Are you guys taking prep or
Yeah, I mean, I can just start now.
Just give me 1 second. I'm sending it. Just 1 second. Okay, I sent it, but like the format kind of got messed up because of the way it like pasted over, and that's
Okay, that's fine. Let's just start
yeah, let
rebuttal.
me just like check to make sure I got it though.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that works.
All right. Let's just start rebuttal now then. Okay. Time will start. Okay, the
I
order
I
is
got you at 45 seconds of prep. Is that correct?
Yeah,
did.
sure. 45
Okay.
seconds. It's fine. Okay. Time will start in 3, 2, 1. Order is down their case. 3, 2, 1. Okay, first on their contention about bypassing gridlock, we tell you that executive orders are used to usurp the legislative process, and gridlock is only used as an excuse. KD 15 tells us that executive power is being used not because America can't wait for congressional gridlock to be resolved, but because it's easier to make the change through executive power than through the legislative process set out in the Constitution. Congress can do very little, save drastic actions to stop the executive for gaining power at its expense. What this evidence tells you, Judge, is that congressional gridlock is used as a front to allow the executive branch to centralize power and become more authoritarian by the day. The executive branch wants to become the sole litigator and lawmaker through using executive orders and abusing them. This is clearly a dangerous precedent because the legislative branch is meant to create laws as set out in the Constitution. When you delegate this authority to executive orders and presidents keep pushing it and make it and normalize it, it ultimately undermines Congress itself, and they use gridlock as an excuse. They give you two examples for this. They say that FDR passed some executive orders to help start the Civilian Conservation Corps. However, this gridlock argument is literally wrong because FDR had a supermajority in both houses of Congress at the time that they say that. So how can you buy this? It was in tandem. There's no way you can buy this argument. And as for COVID-19, they give you a simple analytic that, oh, the United States didn't respond to COVID very well. However, the time frame here is messed up. I think my partner messed up on saying on the date. However, we're talking about congressional acts that were passed after Biden entered office mere days after. We tell you that the CARES Act and Significant Family Aid Act helped allocate the money needed to start vaccine access and PPE. Ultimately, the executive orders should not be blamed for the success of the pandemic response. And even if you buy their argument that this congressional legislation did nothing because America was one of the worst responsive countries, this turns on their own side as well because it also proves that their executive orders didn't do anything as well. So it's a clear double bind over here. Okay, now let's move on to their second contention about trade. This is just misconstruing the evidence. They talk about the US-UK trade deal. However, executive orders are not used to create trade deals. The executive order they're talking about is literally just to assist in the implementation of the US side of the deal. It doesn't create the direct economic benefit that they cite. That's the deal itself, not the executive order. What we see here, Judge, is that they're misconstruing evidence to make it seem like the executive orders are the source of the benefits that they claim. However, this is literally false. As for innovation, they talk about regulatory rollbacks that will lead to more innovation. However, there's no terminal impact or quantifiable impact for this contention. There's no money, there's no figures on what exactly has been increased. They're simply talking about regulations being rolled back, and somehow that leads directly to innovation. So it's still not the executive order in this case that is leading to these direct benefits. What we tell you, Judge, is that the harms clearly outweigh the benefits, insofar as all of their benefits are falsely attributed to EOs and are more likely attributed to other things such as trade deals, which are not made through EOs, and congressional legislation in COVID-19. Gridlock is only used as an excuse to centralize power in the executive branch at the expense of Congress and other means of democracy. What the result is an erosion of democracy. However, there are much worse harms that come from EOs. EOs are used to enforce sanctions against foreign countries. Beretta in U24 tells us that the president can declare a national emergency and issue EOs to address national emergency by freezing assets of and prohibiting financial transactions with any country, entity, or person deemed to be a threat. These sanctions result in deaths, poverty, and other problems for civilians. CEPR tells us that 30 analyses of countries that were targeted by U.S. sanctions had significant declines in living standards in sanctions-related countries. Extend the harms of unilateral intervention. The last time Congress declared war was World War II. Executive orders have been used to start disastrous wars in the Middle East. We tell you that indirect deaths from these wars in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iraq, Syria, and Yemen through executive orders have resulted in 3.6 to 3.8 million lives lost. For these reasons, vote for the negative. Thank you.
Okay, really quickly, can I just see the card that says that, like what you said, the executive branch wants to be the sole lawmaker?
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, Neil, I know like you're having a bit of trouble with the card, but like, do you know what? Like, can you give us something to control F for? Because there's not really any highlights on the card.
I mean, I kind of gave the main points to the card inside of there. It's like
Wait,
they're
it's like the
different
whole article
cards.
though. It's like the whole article. I
No, no, no.
can't
They're,
read.
they're different cards. I'm not sure if that uh, design also got messed up, but it's different parts of like different cards.
Wait, so this isn't one card?
The whole thing isn't one card. No, I sent multiple different cards
So
as per the multiple different
is each paragraph
links.
one card or like what's going on here? I'm not really sure.
Yeah, so that's exactly. I think the format got messed up. I think it's when there's like a larger space in between. That's the gap in between cards. There's the COVID-19 one, and then there's the Congress massive influx, and then there should be the Trump one that talks about um court backlog because of many different EOs.
Okay, I sent the card. Tell me if you guys get it.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, we got the card. So,
All right. Is anyone is that ready opponents ready before I begin?
Yeah, we're ready.
All right. Really quickly, I'll give an outline of my speech before I begin. I'll be going down our opponent's case, and then no, I'll be going down our own case, sorry, and then we'll be looking at our opponent's case. Um, if everyone's ready, I'll start my time now. Let's start on our first argument about breaking gridlock. The response they make here is that gridlock is only a front. But judges, you only need to look at their own evidence, which tells you that not only is gridlock bad right now, but executive orders can pass it. They'll say that's a front, but there are checks to executive orders, which we have seen over and over again. But then they'll say FDR had a super majority during the Great Depression. Historically, this is just not true. A majority is not enough to get these laws passed. This was the only way to pass it. Even then, you can look to organizations like the DHS or the EPA, which are basically created by executive orders. But then they'll say Congress created COVID. Again, it's not a double bind. We'll tell you, Biden thought Congress could do it. He made that mistake, and that is why we took so long. It only after he realized Congress was gridlocked and passed the executive order did we actually start recovering. But go to our second contention. They said there's no quantification. We literally give you the number of hundreds of thousands of investors. They also say that there's like the market access didn't happen. We'll tell you it helped boost this deal from nothing to a great deal. Without these executive orders, the innovation would have been down the drain. That's our evidence about 46% that our opponents completely concede. Then they'll say sanctions and war harms our impact more than we say. We'll say no, war is not caused by executive order. That's an independent action by the Pentagon and other branches of the US government. Even then, we'll tell you that our impact is comparatively worse. It's not only just a single event, but it's scalar. For every 1% of GDP that we increase, 3 million are lifted out of poverty. Let's go to our opponent's case. What we should realize that our opponents are looking on the paper. When we look to the real world, none of their arguments actually take place. Again, all of their arguments are talking about some imaginary scenario where a dictatorship takes place. Not only are we looking at a resolution that's on balance, looking at what has already happened, but we'd say this has nothing to do with any of this happened. If we've had executive orders for hundreds of years, their impact should have happened already. But let's go to their first contention. What we should realize is that when we look to the real world, courts almost always check back against it. Look to their own evidence again, which tells you that Trump's Muslim majority and Biden's student debt executive orders were almost instantly overturned by the courts. That's an example of the courts in action. And that is why Democracy Forward finds that Trump failed 93% of the time when his agency's actions have been challenged report. We'd say only the good executive orders pass, everything else gets stopped. But again, we'd also say that empirically, even if you don't buy that Congress and the courts can check against executive orders, we'd say the voters check. Even if these two branches are completely dysfunctional, the president is not going to go on a North Korea style regime if he knows that his voters are not going to support that. That is never going to happen, and that is why it has never happened in 250 years. Even then, let's go to our second contention, their second contention about court abuse. Again, we'd say court does not, the WITS 25 evidence tells you the administration came creating a massive litigation. The problem here is not the volume. I mean, the courts have handled larger pigs. The reason why it is spiking now is because we are in a brand new administration. When you look to history, as the administration cools down, so do the courts. And that is why the courts are not looking at problems. And we've had a bunch of Supreme Court rulings this weekend. Even then, go to the third contention about accountability. Look to exactly what they're saying about DEI initiatives and the closed door EOs. We'd say their own examples prove against them. All of these initiatives prove that courts can check, that Congress can check, and that is not a closed door effort. They are quite literally the most public law when a president posts a huge announcement about them. That is why there is so much scrutiny. At the end of the day, Judge, not only are executive orders the only way to break gridlock, but they are checked by various things such as courts, the Congress, and the voters. That's why you have to affirm in favor of executive orders.
Okay. Are we ready for crossfire?
Yep.
All right. Time will begin in 3, 2, 1. Start. Could I have the first question?
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned that in your response to our response on COVID, you said that Biden saw that Congress was gridlocked and not doing anything and then decided to pass the executive orders. And I'd like to ask you, when did Biden sign these executive orders?
Okay. I'm not a legal expert. I don't have the specific date. I'd say Biden signed it right after after he realized Congress wasn't doing anything. But
So
I
how
think
do
we're
you know,
spending a
how can
bit
you
too, wait,
assert
hold on.
that?
I just like to, sorry, I just like to want to finish my sentence, right? I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
we're spending a bit too long on this, insofar as your own evidence has already told us that there is gridlock in the status quo, and your own evidence says that the president uses executive orders to bypass gridlock. So I'm not sure what we're contesting here.
Yeah, we're saying it's a
First
front
question,
to, yeah, okay.
yeah, let's look at your first contention about democracy. So
Mhm.
can you give me an example of it? Yeah, actually, yeah. Why would a president institute like a dictatorial regime with executive orders? That's never happened in 250 years.
Yeah, so the thing is, it's like progressive, like the increasing use of executive orders. Like you may say, oh, in 250 years, there hasn't been a dictatorship, but this is something that grows. The use of executive orders grows over time, and the past few presidents have been relying them like a ton. So like the risk
So
increases with time. If you can't prove that there's like a reverse trend, then we have to go with the current trend, which is that EO use is expanding, and that I mean, like as for the question of why, like. It's
yeah,
centralizing
so
power.
yeah.
Yeah.
So are we in a dictatorship right now?
We're heading towards authoritarianism. We're getting increasingly more
Are
authoritarian.
we right now? Yeah, yes or do you think we are
We're
right
not a
now?
dictatorship. No, we're not a
So if it's
dictatorship.
been 250 years and this gradual process still has not tipped the scales, when will it? What's the date?
Well, we can't like provide you a specific date because transitions to authoritarian regimes don't occur in one day. Like that's not how it works. Like it's a
Well, yeah, they
fundamental
don't occur one day, but
misinterpretation
they
of what we're
certainly don't
saying.
take. Yeah, they don't occur
But
one day, but they certainly don't take hundreds of years to take place, right?
But that's like you're missing the point we're saying is that like if you look at like the first 150 years of American presidency, they didn't rely nearly as much on executive orders. Like this is an issue that's compounding over time. It's gotten much worse in the past few years than it has in the past like 150 years. Like
I'd
that's the
say
point we're trying to make that like
I'd say like from the beginning, Jefferson had scrutiny on his like Louisiana Purchase, which was technically an executive order, but you can have questions.
okay. So you mentioned that so like again on the Biden thing, like we're saying that Congress passed the funding for like vaccine rollouts and then PPE and testing like 3 days after Biden got into office, like the CARES Act. So like you mentioned that he saw them not working. However, how can this be true if he implemented those EOs on his first day in office?
Okay, we're a bit over time, but I'll just respond to this. Again, like we say, we shouldn't bring this example up over and over again. We don't need a piece of evidence. We've all lived through this pandemic. We've seen that it was not effective until later action was taken. But again, this is not a point of contest. Our opponents have already told us in their own evidence that gridlock is bypassed.
Okay, judges. I don't need any prep time, so I'm just gonna go ahead and start. Let me just take you through a quick off-time roadmap. It's gonna start on their case, just basically explain why none of their impacts can materialize. Move on to our case, do some front lines, and then we'll move on to some weighing if time permits. Okay, time will begin in 3, 2, 1. Okay, starting on their case, they cherry pick a couple examples of where executive orders are good. We tell you that the executive order. The mechanism itself is flawed, and we explain how in multiple throughout our entire case, which kind of goes to drop. We'll move on to that later. Next, let's actually talk about their contentions. Their C1 about breaking gridlock. We clearly state that it's an excuse, and they try and respond by saying, "Oh, our evidence says that Congress is gridlocked and the executive orders bypass it." But we clearly say this is a front. It's an excuse to deliberate all the power into the executive branch, and they clearly failed to respond to this at all. And there are two examples that they give themselves. We show that Congress did act and could act. In FDR, he had the supermajority on both houses. That means that Congress could act there. And we tell you that during COVID, they try and say we shouldn't focus just on this example. This is one of the only two examples they give. We show you that Congress did act and it acted effectively. They have no evidence proving otherwise. We show you that they've donated trillions of dollars. They acted within days. It's not just EOs are not fat. EOs are fat, not EOs are fast, but they don't work, even if they are fast, and Congress is just as fast. That's the fact of the matter. You can't even buy their impact, even if there is an impact here, which there isn't. They can't even provide you a single benefit in that contention. Next, let's move on to their C2 on innovation. They try and tell you that EO is unique to trade, but they can't provide any way to show that it is. And their impact is that every time the GDP goes up, 3 million people are taken out of poverty, but this cannot be attributed to EOs in itself. The GDP can be raised all throughout Congress, congressional legislation, presidents, other powers outside of executive orders. You can't attribute everything the GDP raising for an entire country just through executive orders. They provide you no evidence that it's through executive orders. On their actual link chain, they say that the Canada trade, we show you that it was just to initiate the trade. It wasn't actually leading to the impacts that they talk about. That was done through many other things, as my partner has responded to, and they failed to acknowledge that at all. Next, let's move on to their case. Or our case, sorry. We talk to you all about democratic institutions. We give you many different examples. First off, I want to focus on sanctions and military interventionism. They completely drop this. First off, they can't give you one response on military interventionism. They say that war is independent and it isn't done through executive orders. We clearly tell you that this military intervention was done through executive orders. I don't know where they're trying to go with this. War was not done independently. It was done through executive orders. And the second off, sanctions goes completely dropped. This is one of the biggest impacts in the round. Leads to it completely hinders trade, which they talk about as their impact in C2. They talk about all of that. And then we give you the biggest impact in the round, which is 5 million people in interventionism. And we give you many more negative examples. I can give you a very, very long list. We give you 9066, this goes drop. We give you Guantanamo Bay. We give you termination of WHO, EO 14148. We can keep listing this. We show you the negative outweigh the harm in every single scenario. Next, let's move on to some weighing. We outweigh on magnitude because we impact more people throughout the round. We outweigh on link weighing because we show you that our links are actually straight. We show you how this happens. We show you how democratic institutions are undermined, and this completely goes flowed through. They try and tell you that their courts checking and that the courts check work. But first off, we tell you that courts are backlogged. This goes dropped as well, which means that courts cannot check. Courts have only checked 2 executive orders in all of history, meaning that they aren't working. First off, they fail to acknowledge this, and then they try and give a couple examples of cherry picking where courts overturn. We tell you that this just isn't true with every single scenario. Most scenarios left completely untouched, and for these reasons, we urge a neg ballot. Thank you.
Okay. Wait, Leo, how much time did you take before rebuttal?
I don't think I took that.
Okay, so I'm gonna take just running prep, so I'll start the timer now. Okay. is okay, that was a minute 30 of prep. So brief off-time roadmap before I start. I'm gonna be extending our case and defending it. Then I'm gonna move on to my opponent's case, and finally I'll wait. Is everyone ready? So my time will start. Now, Judge, in this debate, we're going to extend our argument of breaking the gridlock, where we show you that Congress is the most polarized it has ever been. It's only passed 30 laws recently, proving that it's so polarized it can't get anything done. Presidents have a limited power, and presidents have the power to actually proceed with these executive orders and actually make a change to speed up efficiency and actually get things done. So we bring up COVID, we bring up the Great Depression, and we show you that these are efficient in preventing emergencies such as COVID. So what do my opponents say to this the entire round? Let's defend. Number one, they say, oh, gridlock is just an excuse to allow us to centralize power and that the executive branch wants to just have all the power to them. First of all, they completely drop the fact that their own argument or evidence that they used, KD15, which they sent to us, which they never brought up later in the round, proves it literally says there is gridlock right now. So what does that mean for us? It means the fact that their evidence agrees that we have the problem. We are on the affirmative, and we're the only side that actually does anything. They're on the negative. Their own side is saying that there is a problem. They have no reason saying how their world with living with the problem is better than our world that actually stops this problem. We have full access to our impact here because of that solely. But then let's go on to this COVID clash that has gone over and over in this round. We show you two things. There's two possibilities on my opponent's side. Either A, the Congress literally did nothing until the executive orders were passed in Biden's administration, only proving ineffectiveness. They haven't done anything for 6 months. Or B, they did decide to do something, but it didn't work at all in those 6 months. So then Biden got elected and actually made these executive orders to make a change. Again, that also proves uselessness of the Congress. Clearly, they did nothing. Now, with our case clean through this round and our impact of efficiency and quick funding in emergencies to save us from vaccines and war, let's go on to my opponent's case. So firstly, they talk about undermining democracy, completely dropping this one big picture. Judge, do they have any signs of authoritarianism forming? Ask yourself that. No. The answer is no. They can't even bring you an example or evidence, which they did not do the entire round. Then then realize their entire case is contingent on the fact that we're in a democracy right now. Realize the fact that we're literally not. But then, even then, good EOs passed. Everything else is stopped. 93% of Trump's EOs were blocked because they were bad and they were checked back. Now let's go on to their court clog. Realize there are checks, and even then, their courts are permanently clogged. Congress and voters checking against bad executive orders is completely dropped. 93% EOs get dropped. But then, even then, realize it's been 250 years. And even then, finally, with their entire accountability argument out the window, when you realize the fact that we could bring up a laundry list, courts provided effective checks against the EO reach. Look at the LGBTQIA interpretations. EOs did not have the force of law. The Supreme Court declared the LGBTQIA discrimination in employment, violating the Civil Rights Act. That's a clear innovation. We win on link weighing. We are the only side that actually solves the problems that they themselves propose with their own evidence that they sent to us. We win on everything in this debate to actually preserve democracy and get things done. Thus, we strongly urge an affirmative ballot. Thank you.
Okay, are you ready for Grand Cross?
All right, are you ready for cross?
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay, time will start in three, two, one. Okay, can I get
do you mind if I have the first question?
You can take it.
Okay, so in your summary, you mentioned how the evidence we sent you, KD15, says there is gridlock. Could you explain where it says that?
Yeah.
Yeah, at the bottom of your card. Okay, first of all, it's been like many speeches, so you already dropped it. But at the bottom, it says Congress could do very little to stop. Yeah, Congress can do very little. That's talking about gridlock.
Congress can do very little to stop the executive from gaining power at its expense. That doesn't mention gridlock.
What the Congress doing? Okay, first of all, it has been dropped. Even if you don't buy this, this card
No,
going
but
to our side.
Okay, so first off, it hasn't been dropped. I clearly responded. We responded to it in rebuttal. I responded to it in summary. We clearly stated that this.
Wait, you didn't bring it up at all in summary first?
I did. I say that this card says nothing about congressional gridlock, and I also said it's an excuse as per the evidence.
Wait, yeah, so that's contradicting itself in itself, but I'll explain now. So when you say in this last sentence, when it says Congress doesn't do anything. The reason it can't do anything is because of gridlock, because it's a polarized government.
Think again about what it's saying. It's saying Congress can do very little to stop the executive from gaining power at its expense. What does this mean? If executive orders are increasingly becoming more prevalent and the executive is largely relegated to making the laws and setting policies, that directly undermines Congress.
Right,
So you
but
can easily say that Congress is losing power because the executive is abusing executive orders to create
right,
laws
but
on their
Why?
own.
but
Let's
at the
walk through
same
this card,
time,
right?
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
you can go. It's fine.
So
Yeah.
let's walk through your card, right? So why can Congress do very little? It's not just magically out of nowhere,
Yeah, like
and there
what is
has to
a
be.
root cause? Because we're the only side that actually brings up the fact
All
what is
right. Okay. Okay.
Wait,
I
so
understand the question.
wait,
Let me respond.
wait, I didn't even finish my question
But your partner asked a question,
though.
didn't he?
Wait, I don't think he finished either.
Okay, I heard something else. All right, you can go on.
Okay, yeah. So what we're saying is that we're the only side that actually has the root cause of this gridlock or of Congress not being able to do anything. If you can't provide, I mean, it's obviously way too late in the round now, but if you can't provide any evidence that directly like gives another reason for this root cause for why the Congress is ineffective, then we automatically would just default to ours because we're the only side that brought
Wait, what root cause did you provide for
wait,
the
partner,
gridlock
Gridlock,
can I
broad
itself?
respond to
gridlock.
this?
polarization.
So,
Yeah.
partner, let me respond to this. So, first off, even if you buy the fact that maybe our card says that Congress has good luck, we clearly showed through your own examples that Congress did act and acted positively in a way that
Wait,
made a good impact
right,
through your. Can you let me finish?
okay,
So,
go
you
ahead.
basically you give COVID and you give FDR during Great Depression. We show you that Congress acted during both times and it ended up successful, which you kind of end up dropping. And the fact of the matter is, you guys haven't shown yourself that EOs are unique themselves to fixing this emergency plan. You show no evidence saying that the EOs have fixed it and Congress has
Wait,
not.
can I quickly respond to that, even though
It's
Carlton's over? Wait, can I? Yeah, I know. I'm asking them. Can I quickly
yeah,
respond?
okay.
Okay, yeah. So what we would say is that I did actually spend like 20 seconds plus on COVID, and I told you either way, if Congress literally did nothing, it proves that they're useless because they did nothing, or they did something, but obviously it didn't work until November when the president had to do executive orders, which also proves it's useless.
But
Okay,
you
all
could
That's
right.
have solved
Okay,
speculation.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
But
Let's just get to final focus.
yeah.
Time will start in three, and the order is just weighing our case, their case. Okay. Time will start in three, two, one. Start. Judge, the most important thing to remember in this round is that none of their impacts are directly linked to executive orders. Executive orders are not the reason for any of their benefits, and here's why. We tell you that COVID-19, they continually try to clash with this throughout the round. However, all their clashes make zero sense because Biden implemented those executive orders on January 20th when he assumed office, and Congress passed those CARES Act and other legislation relating to COVID, which provided the funds to actually carry out the pandemic response 7 days later. So they're in a double bind here. Did the executive orders lead to this recovery, or are they saying that executive orders meant nothing because the US had a bad response? Because both occurred around the same time. You can't say that President Biden enacted those executive orders after seeing Congress gridlock when he literally did it before Congress implemented that legislation. You can't warp time and space to make it fit your argument. That's not how it works. But furthermore, their trade and innovation is also just wrong. You shouldn't buy this argument because the US UK trade deal was not due to an executive order. All the benefits are from the trade deal itself, so you can't attribute those benefits to executive orders because executive orders did not cause the trade deal to occur. So you shouldn't be buying this argument. But anyways, let's extend on what is actually important in the round, and those are the harms of executive orders. We tell you that EO 9066 interned over 100,000 Japanese Americans without any due process, confiscated their property, but even more, there's even more. We tell you sanctions, which goes unresponded to in summary, so this flows clean through. Sanctions have resulted in worse living conditions, poverty, health issues in 30 different targeted countries, and these are enabled through executive orders, as we prove through evidence. We also say that unilateral military interventionism, as the executive undermines legislative authority to declare war. Congress has only declared war since 1942. Executive power has been rapidly expanding through the use of EOs. This has resulted in 3.8 to 3.9 million lives lost directly due to executive orders. This is the largest impact in the round because it's an actual impact. These are existential impacts because lives cannot be brought back. Insofar as they don't provide a single example of any lives being saved due to EO, we win. So for these reasons, vote F. Thank you.
I'll start my prep now. All right. Are my judges and opponents ready? All right. In that case, the order of my speech will be going down our opponent's case, then we'll be looking at our own case, and then we'll be weighing the two sides. Okay. Um, if everyone's ready before I begin, I'll start my time now. Judge, when we look at our opponent's side of the flow, they concede two central ideas that are critical to taking out their case. Number one is that they have conceded there are checks. Even if there's some debate on whether Congress checks, we tell you what we're talking about, the courts and the voters are basically completely conceded. Remember what I said in rebuttal and what my partner said in summary, with a president won't do something outrageous when the courts have checked. That's why 93% of executive orders that are bad have not passed. We'd also say the second big idea is that after 250 years, you'd think we would have already like plunged into a dictatorship according to their arguments already. It has not happened. They've been ringing the same bell since the start of our colonial democracy, but we'd say there's no reason for any of that to happen because of the checks. But let's go on to our case. We should vote on the most important argument in the round, which is our first contention on gridlock. The COVID argument is kind of becoming a slog at this point, but like we said, they didn't really respond to my partner's response in summary, where we tell you there was no response until after the executive orders. Even then, no matter which side the COVID argument flows to, we'd say their evidence on Katie tells us that either way, executive orders are the way to solve for gridlock. Even then, our evidence basically goes conceded. The best way to break gridlock is on our side. Then, our opponents don't really weigh the arguments in the round, but we tell you on balance, the importance of breaking gridlock is more important than anything else in the round. Not only is it integral to keeping democracy like our opponents say, but any of the issues our opponents talk about, like these foreign wars or these sanctions, can't be solved at all if we have a broken Congress. Insofar, it has been clean throughout this debate that a dictatorship is not going to happen, that gridlock is the only way to be broken through executive orders, and that gridlock is the most important priority we must affirm to stop these impacts.
Okay. Thank you, Judge.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
judges.
judges. Good round, guys.
Yeah, great round, opponents.